I'm Doug Cuney, and this is my kitchen, and today I'm going to show you how to make kefir. Now, kefir is a fermented milk drink that originated in the Caucasus Mountains, which is between the Black and the Caspian Sea. And it's similar in a lot of qualities to yogurt. Kefir is spelled K-E-F-I-R. And in most of the world, it's pronounced kefir, but in the United States, it's pronounced kefir because murdering the Queen's English is what we do. Until recently, most people had never heard the word probiotics or knew what it meant. I'm pretty certain that our ancestors didn't need to know what probiotics were because in order to preserve their food, lots of times they used natural fermentation, which caused helpful bacteria to build up in the food that they were preserving, and it kept it from spoiling. People ask me what kind of milk they should use. Well, you can use just about any sort of milk. Pasteurized milk is going to be the most readily available for most people. Ultra pasteurized, you need to try to avoid that if you possibly can. If you're going to make butter, which you can use kefir to make butter, cultured butter, you can use heavy cream. If I'm not drinking it every day, I tend to use half and half because it makes a richer product. Vitamin D whole milk will work fine. 2% will work. Skim milk doesn't tend to make a very good product. I know a lot of people want to use skim milk because they've been brainwashed into thinking that they shouldn't consume any kind of fat, especially dairy fat. So the industry has produced this abomination called skim milk that they actually think is better for them, which is, I think we're beginning to learn that that's not the case now. There are a few things you're going to need to make kefir. One is kefir grains, which I'll cover momentarily. But there are a few simple tools that you're going to have. One is mason jars, quart jars with the two-part lids. At least one, you may need more depending on how much kefir you're going to make and how long you want to let it ferment. You're going to need bowls. One will probably do you. Spatulas come in handy, and a strainer. And when you're straining your kefir, you want to go with a plastic or a nylon fine mesh strainer. I ordered this one through Amazon. You can probably find them in kitchen stores. But it's a good idea to avoid using metal with your kefir, especially with the kefir grains, because sometimes they do react adversely to metallic objects. So, plastic strainer. Other than that, you need milk, which we've talked about, and I think that's about it. So let's get started. Okay, in order to make kefir, you're going to need a culture, and kefir isn't like bread culture, something you can start at home, and it's not like yogurt where you can get some live yogurt cultures and begin your own making of yogurt at home. You need the kefir grains, and the term grain is kind of misleading, but this is what they look like. Here's a fairly large one, and they actually look like, I don't know if you can see this really or not, they actually look like little, if they're healthy, white cream colored cauliflower florets, and they have the texture of a real soft rubber. They're actually a polysaccharide casing that the culture makes for itself to live in, and this is what the culture establishes itself in the milk with. So you're going to need those. If you know someone that actually has kefir grains, then by all means get them from them. Otherwise, you're probably going to have to go to a store online and get them. I've not had a lot of luck with buying kefir grains at health food stores. On a number of occasions, I've gone into stores and said, "Do you have kefir grains?" And they would say, "Well, we have the kefir mixture," which is not the same. It's a modified kefir. It is made so that it won't regenerate itself. You have to go back and buy kefir from them whenever you want it. Now, if you happen to have a friend that has kefir grains, then lucky you, but most of us don't. And even in larger cities, it's often hard to get hold of kefir grains. So your best option is to order them online. And there are two places that come to mind off the top of my head. One is a woman named Marilyn who has a website, I believe is called kefirlady.com. The other place you might check out would be culturesforhealth.com. They've got a lot of things available, and they've got a lot of resource material that's very good to watch, so check them out. Word of caution though, as your kefir grains multiply, you may find yourself with more grains than you can use. If you try to use all of them for fermentation, you're going to end up starving the ones you have. They need to have sufficient milk. So it's better to keep your grains to a smaller number and let them ferment a little bit longer and keep them healthy than it is to try to support too many at one time and have all of your grains die. So here's the procedure for making kefir. You get your quart jar. Now I usually weigh my grains out. It's a real easy way to keep track of what you're using. I'm going to, I think, shoot for 30 grams of kefir grains because my house right now is rather cool. We'll see what we got here. I could probably use a little more. No, actually that's just about right. That's about 34 grams right there, which, considering how cool the house is, should be just about right. So, shut the scale off. Now in this case, I'm using half and half. You can use whole milk, vitamin D, whatever you want. And it looks as if I'm going to have just a little more. Now when I first started making kefir, I was scared to death that putting kefir grains in chilled milk was going to damage them somehow, but you know what? You can put them in the refrigerator. They store that way and it slows the fermentation way down, but it doesn't stop it, doesn't kill the grains. And this is going to come up to temperature. So you're going to seal that up. Sealing it up will in fact cause it to form a little bit of effervescence, which I find very pleasant. Now, unlike yogurt, where you take the yogurt and you stir it into the milk so the culture is spread throughout the entire quantity of milk, kefir grains are localized because of that grain that they live in. So you only have certain areas that are in actual contact with the milk, and as it warms, if you walk by in 8 hours or so, you'll notice that it's started to thicken up a little bit and stratify on the top. In that case, pick it up, just give it a slight twirl like that, just to expose the grains to some fresh milk, and that will make it easier for the grains to feed. Alright, so you've got your kefir, and it's had the grains in it. You've stirred it up a little bit, kind of shaking it from time to time, but at this point it's starting to ferment. It's established a fermentation, and when you hold it up and look at it, it's a little thicker on the top, and before you move it, it'll actually have formed bubbles in the thicker portion of it. So that tells you that your Culture has been established. Now, one thing, when you have it sealed up, kefir will form a kind of effervescence, which is really pleasant flavor-wise, but you have to kind of watch. It's not bad when it's this full, but if you fill a jar full and leave it to ferment, it may spray out of the top. So, if you've had it torqued down, the lid. So, we will get this, we'll separate the grains. So I'm simply, you can see how that's thickened up. I'm simply going to pour the kefir through the strainer and gently shake it to remove the grains. Now, don't press the grains on the screen. You just want to kind of turn them gently if you need to use a spatula, because they can be damaged. Especially, this is another reason for not using a metal strainer. So I'm going to get myself a plate here to put these on. Now, at this point, you can consume this kefir if you want to make a shake out of it. Put fruit in it or banana or whatever you choose. This can be consumed now. I'm going to put it back in the jar and leave it until tomorrow and allow it to continue to ferment, so I can show you a couple other options of what you can do with this. Now, even though you're taking the grains out, that doesn't mean it's going to stop fermenting. The culture itself has been established by the grains, and it will continue to ferment over a period of time. So you can either consume this now, or you can set it aside until tomorrow and let it continue to ferment. Now, if you decide to put your kefir away for a second fermentation for an additional day, you end up with something that looks like this, and it's actually divided into curds, which are the top thickened portion, and the whey, which is a liquid on the bottom, a kind of greenish white liquid. The advantage to doing this is that you can still eat it. The probiotic value has gone up because it's fermented even longer, but you can also take this and pour this into a bowl lined with muslin cloth, and you can squeeze it out, squeeze the whey out, and save that, and this curd will give you a fresh cheese. You can put fruit in it, you can put chopped dill, and do just about anything you could do with like a cream cheese. The whey you want to hang on to because you can use it as a way to inoculate pickles with a fresh lacto fermentation culture. So you can use it to make sauerkraut, you can use it to make kimchi, or even pickled eggs. I hope this has been helpful. I'd like to encourage you to subscribe to my channel, and if you have any questions, leave a message for me. And make sure you share these videos with your friends. I'm Doug Cuny. Until next time, take care.